Welcome everybody to this event and the next section in Wagstaff, the Careers Collective. I'm really delighted today to be joined by Pete Colby, who is going to join me in talking through some great hints and tips about how you can create your best CV. So Pete, thank you very much for, I'm going to say, dragging you into this and helping me explore CVs with everybody. You've had a really great career and a really diverse career. So before we start talking about CVs and what everybody else should be doing, could you just introduce yourself and talk about your career?
Hi Ruth, I'm looking forward to the discussion. Yeah, of course I can. I'm getting a bit old now, so I've had quite a long career as well.
We all are.
Yeah, I'm 34 years in, so yeah, I started when I was 5, obviously. Yeah, I've actually got a slide that I can. This is my career.
I do have envy of this slide. Yeah, I feel like I will be stealing this because I love it.
Yeah, you need a chair on wheels, but
yeah.
Just
I'm not sure I'm going to get the false teeth though, but carry on.
So just to whiz you through my career very quickly, I left school at 16. So I wasn't a studier at school. Left at 16, started making false teeth. I was bullied in my I was bullied in my first job, so I left there, didn't stay there long. I became a trainee accountant, studied accountancy for 2 years, really wasn't me at all. Didn't know what I wanted to do, so I just went traveling. So I was 19 when I went, 21 when I came back. Got a job packing boxes in a warehouse that I thought for a month or two to get money for Christmas. Stayed there 3 years. Became warehouse supervisor. Bought a house with my girlfriend at the time. 3 months later, they closed the site. So I was made redundant. Disaster at that time. My boss there was a great guy, not like this one. And he did a bit of coaching and said, "You've probably got a little bit about you. So your qualifications, because you left school at 16, they're not as high as they could be. So why not study?" I had a mortgage to pay. So basically I studied in the day and worked at night.
Yeah.
I then, after a few years studying, I saw a job here, a vacancy for a recruitment consultant.
Oh dear, you don't want to do that.
So I became a recruitment consultant, recruiting for engineers and production people, which was great. But again, it got a bit salesy for me in that particular company. So it wasn't really me. My main client was British Steel, which became Chorus. And that's where I started my HR career, started as a personnel assistant. And when I left there, I was the UK HR manager for a division of British Steel.
Wow.
They wanted me to move to South Wales. That didn't really fit for me at the time. So I joined the food industry, Northern Foods, pork farms in Nottingham, particularly challenging employee relations environment. So I did the HR manager job there for a few years. We then merged 2 factories and we were recruiting for a bigger factory manager, and my boss had a crazy idea and asked me to be the factory manager. So I was the factory manager of 2 factories, looking after the whole operations, about 850 people at the maximum level, including temps, etc. So did that for about 3.5 years. Best, hardest, worst, most challenging job I've ever done. But yeah, gives you some real good insights when you do an operational role like that.
Yeah.
We were then acquired by venture capitalists, and they stripped out some of the long-term people things. So I looked on the market again. That's when I joined this little company here called Rolls-Royce. Joined as a global senior HR exec, looking after a part of Rolls-Royce of about 4,000 people across the world. I looked after US, Italy, Germany, UK, China. Never slept because I looked after every time zone. And then latterly, I looked after Derby in Rolls-Royce. So that's 12,000 employees. And I had a large team of HR managers that worked for me. And then the second time in my career, it's like being a weather presenter. Redundancy kicked in. And I then launched my own business, which is what I do now. So I run a company called Pragmatism. And we mainly look after mediation, dispute resolution, and hopefully try and do some of the preventative things and avoid disputes in the first place. So that's me.
Wow. You have got a really, you're probably one of the people I've met that's got the most diverse career. I don't think I've ever known anybody do dentistry into accountancy, then into manufacturing, and then global HR. You know, that's, and you've seen so many different industries as well.
Yeah. I mean, I've mainly been in the manufacturing space, but the different industries, and going from false teeth through to aerospace and jet engines is
That's
it's a good journey.
Yeah, that's a very good journey, very good journey. So in your role within HR and then operational, you will have seen a lot of CVs. You'll obviously created your own CV, which takes a talent as well. But you will have seen a lot of CVs and recruited for a variety of roles in your career, especially say in those HR and operational roles.
Yeah, I dread to think how many thousands of CVs.
Yeah. Hence why I wanted to speak with you about how many CVs you've seen and what makes a great CV. I think CVs are very personal, and there's a way that you tailor those for your journey because it's your career and it's your story. But there are some fundamental, things to do and things not to do. The first thing I'd like to ask you is, when you're reading a CV, and especially at times like this, there's going to be lots of applications and multiple people applying for maybe just one position. What makes you keep reading, or what makes you turn the page? What grabs your interest?
I think you've got to. I think you've got to put yourself in the position of the person who's recruiting, really. So usually when I've been recruiting, either in a recruitment job or in a HR job or a manufacturing job, you tend to get a lot of applications when you think, that's the first step. So the first step is a pile of CVs on your desk. And I think some people think that people have got the time to actually, read every word. And the thing that makes me, I always start with I'll have one big pile, and I'll go left for the people that I'm not going to be taking forward, and I'll go right for the people that I am. And the thing that will make me go right is just very quickly seeing the punchy things that I'm looking for. Something that says that's worth reading again.
Okay.
So they'll go into a much smaller right-hand pile, and I won't even look at the ones on the left again.
So can it be about layout then, of when you're saying punchy, so those bullet points, those key achievements that link to the job they're applying for?
Yeah, absolutely. So if ideally that's on the first page, sometimes I don't even need to flick to the second page to think that sparks my interest.
Yeah.
If I'm going to have to dig into page 4 of that CV, I might not get that far because I've got a big pile to get through, and I've probably got 30 minutes to get through that pile.
Yeah.
So that layout is absolutely critical because your eyes will either go to something or they won't. And sometimes, I must admit, sometimes I don't even read a CV because I just see a fog of information. And one of the reasons I didn't go into accountancy and things is my brain doesn't work that well with a big massive numbers, and the same with a big massive jumbled words. If it's not set out right, my interest is gone.
Yeah.
So it's going to go to the left.
And I think picking up on that point, it's very important when you're applying for a role is to look at what the requirements are and what they really want you to deliver for that position. And as you say, make sure those key achievements are highlighted and tailored so that you're bringing out the relevant experience for that job role.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, when I've been thinking about my next move in the career or whatever, if I think about when I left the food industry, I was, am I going to stay in manufacturing or am I going to stay in HR? I had 2 completely different CVs.
Yes.
And they had the same, obviously it was the same history, but it was written in a completely different way. One that brought out manufacturing elements, and somebody looking for manufacturing, that would spring up. The other looking for HR elements, and they were totally different CVs.
Yeah. Yeah, and there isn't anything wrong about having multiple CVs, because then you can tailor that for the role that you're going for. And I'm
Yeah.
expecting, especially in the times that we're in at the moment, there are going to be a lot of manufacturing professionals that are going to be being made redundant, but in their
Yep.
job, they could, in their career, they could have done various roles. So
Yep.
they could have been a production manager, and they may have some lean experience, or they could have, one of their previous roles could have been quality, which means
Yep.
they can apply for a quality role
Yeah,
or a
yeah.
lean role, and you
Yeah.
want those to be tailored, don't you?
Absolutely, and even just in manufacturing, if I take the two extremes of food manufacturing and aerospace manufacturing, they're two completely different. Although they're manufacturing and the principles are
Very
the same,
different.
they're very different. Food, for a reason, when you're recruiting in food, you look for FMCG, fast moving consumer
Absolutely.
goods experience. It's high volume. It's very, very fast paced.
Yeah.
In aerospace manufacturing, things are not high volume, but they're very high cost, and quality, is even more important there than it is in some of the other aspects as regards the cost of quality. And it's really tailoring to the industry, even if it is a manufacturing
Yeah.
role. And it
Yeah.
comes back to reading what are the requirements
Yeah.
of that role. One thing I would say before I forget is, don't forget which CV you've sent.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, make a note in your planning of your applications.
Yeah.
What about the things that people shouldn't do? What are the things, have you seen things on CVs that you don't like, or what are the things that you would think, I wouldn't really recommend somebody do that?
I don't think many people go as far as blatant lying, as in making up jobs. I mean, that's obviously hopefully I don't need to say that.
No.
But the thing, sometimes I've interviewed people, and they've gone onto that right hand pile because they've sparked something in me. They're telling me about something that they've done. But then when you're talking to them and you're digging a little bit deeper, it becomes evident that they've not really done that, and they've fabricated their CV to such an extent that it was somebody else that did that role and it wasn't them. And so straight away you're starting to build a mistrust with that person. So CV's there as a tool to get you in front of the person interviewing, but I would say don't do it in a way that is underhanded or
Yeah,
whatever.
don't embellish your responsibilities or your achievements.
Yeah, because if you're a decent recruiter, that will come out. And I mean, sometimes I've actually called stumps on interviews before, where you're just saying, look, you didn't really do this, did you? And
Yeah.
well, no. And there's like, well, there's no point carrying on really, because that's what's really sparked the interest. And if you're saying you did it and you didn't,
yeah,
there's no point wasting another hour having a discussion and things. But
absolutely.
then I'll coach them a little bit about maybe next time you could put it in a different way or something.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't have got this far had you have been honest on your CV. And when you think about, that's the requirement for the job. So even if you get through the interview and you get off the job, you're not going to be performing that well.
No, so you're not going to be happy, and it's not going to be the right career move.
Yeah, but you might have a dispute, so you can call me in and I can.
And there we are.
But no, I think the whole, I would say the whole embellishing the CV. I think there's always a debate about the length of the CV. Some people say it should be on 2 pages. Try and fit that on 2 pages. I would say. But then some people just want, it's war and peace. And like I said on the sifting thing, if you're hit with just a big jumble of words and it's just verbalizing everything that you've got, that's a big no-no. I think that's probably the biggest turn-off you can have, because you're not going to be bothered to read it. No.
So very key on layout, highlighting achievements, getting those detail in there. I agree with you about length of CV. I think it's a personal thing. And I've always said that if somebody's got a story to tell, as long as it's well written and laid out, and you've got, key achievements, key skills, an overview of what a business has done and what you were responsible of doing, As long as there's a story to tell, it doesn't matter if it ends up on 4 pages. If you've had this 20-year career and done excessive work, but if it fits on one and it fits on one, that's absolutely fine. It doesn't. You don't need to expand it.
No, it's just having that balance of
Absolutely
quality, like I say, giving the and make people want more. You know, make people, I want to hear more from this person.
Yeah. Good.
But it's effective.
Anything else on no-nos? What's your view on pictures on CVs, photos?
I think I've seen I've experienced where it's been a good thing when somebody's done that, and I've experienced when it's been a bad thing. And I'm trying to think, now you've asked me the question, what was the difference? I think it was just the quality of of how it looked on the CV and things. And you know, if it's a highly professional job and it's a picture of you drunk at a party, then it's probably not the best way of doing it.
That's where I was going. Pie in hand, sat on the beach, not the right thing to do.
I think it all comes back to relevance.
Yeah.
You know, it's. I was actually talking to somebody this morning who's actually recruiting somebody, and they were expressing their frustration about, it was a marketing role. It's somebody who does some marketing for me, and I'm just helping them to make sure we get the right person. And they were after creativity, and you know, she would have loved to see a couple of pictures on the CV and probably a little bit creative and not a traditional CV, because it's a creative role.
Absolutely.
So it's an opportunity to demonstrate what you can do through your CV. It doesn't have to be a bog standard.
Yeah, I agree. For the right, and it's about the right role and the right platform, isn't it? Yeah. Design engineers, that innovation side of things. I've often seen some little quirky stuff in there on the creative, and I think that's appropriate. Yeah. Swirly patterns on an administration CV, I'd say no. There's not a need for that.
And if it was a job, I don't know, working in a funeral parlour, and there was a photo of me going, it probably wouldn't
possibly not going to be the right thing. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's all about relevance.
So what would your top 3 tips for somebody who was going out into the market at the moment for the first time after potentially being made redundant? What were the 3 things you think this is what you need to get right with your CV?
I think one of them is, and it sounds really silly, but I think one of them is the quality of the paper.
Right.
CV is, because it's that first impression as well, and you could have the best CV written or printed out on the flimsiest of horrible paper that by the time it's got to because it's probably been handled by a couple of people anyway before it.
Yeah.
And if it's all tatty and crumbled and things like that, sometimes the quality of paper can just make you think, oh, this is good quality. You know, it's almost a subliminal thing.
Well, interesting you're saying about print, because obviously a lot of people apply online these days. So depending on who's printing them out, but I think there is a renaissance of print and post, and actually sending your CV by mail to a hiring manager rather than the online portal with good quality paper. Could that offer a different angle as well when you're against however many?
Well, yeah, because when I started my business, I wasted a lot of money on a so-called marketing expert company. So I just did my own thing, and I handwrote letters to people. It was lawyers in my case. I wanted to work with lawyers. So I did a handwritten envelope with a first-class stamp, because I thought, well, that'll get past the receptionist. And I did a handwritten cover letter.
Yeah.
With handwritten thing, and that, just irrespective of how good or rubbish the content was, that sparked a lot of interest, because people were like, oh wow, we don't see this very much. So yeah. Absolutely, the whole different thing. And I'd love to, if I was recruiting for a job and I got a handwritten or in a nice quality thing that was a handwritten envelope and things like that on good quality paper, that's going to stand out above the ones that are printed from, you know, a secretary's printed out 100 CVs. Oh, and
Yeah.
this one came in the post, and it's
Yeah.
nice and pristine, and it's really good quality, and it's got handwritten. That immediately makes you stand out amongst
Yeah.
everything else.
Absolutely.
And then get
No,
the
good.
content right, and you
Yeah, and then you're there.
you go.
But it is good to think about how to be different, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I think there's a fear of being different, and I think it's really, really important not being too quirky different, but think about. And I think that's my other tip or one of the other tips is put yourself in the shoes of the person that's recruiting. I know you don't know them, but if you think about, right, they work in this company, they're doing this job, they're recruiting for this sort of person. If I was in that position and I had a pile of CVs, what would be different? What would be good different?
Yeah.
And what would help? And, bounce things off other people and get ideas and things. And it can just be a very small difference sometimes that makes the difference.
Yeah, that's good.
And then I think the final one would just be the thing I said about balance, just getting the balance of content right. So you're not, and I think that's where the real time needs to be invested in. I know when I've done CVs, it's probably version 40 that I've finally, and then I always, it's continuously improving it and things, but that's why I say, try and remember which CV you've said.
Yeah, you need to do that.
Yeah. And getting, people like yourself and, expert advice on doing this sort of stuff, because you'll have seen probably
we've
10
seen
times more than I
thousands.
have. Yeah, so
I'm going to interject on our little interview, because I've got a feeling in a very short moment of time the door's going to go in my house, because obviously I'm working from home like that, and the dog's going to start barking.
Brilliant.
So there is the beauty of working from home and flexible doing.
Excellent. That was perfect timing.
Oh, not perfect timing. I am going to stop our recording, say thank you very much, Pete, and go to my door.
Oh, brilliant.